So, in this video, I am starting with a new chapter, that is the fundamental rights. And the fundamental rights is one of the most important component of our civil service preparation. It covers a wide range of rights, and a lot of issues regarding that will come up, and the Supreme Court verdicts are there, new laws which are framed, which are which became controversial. So, understanding of fundamental, and each and every article in the fundamental rights are very important. So, it's a very it's a significant portion in our preparation for civil services. So, it has to be studied very carefully, and multiple, I have divided it into various chapters depending upon the requirement, and especially the main rights, main classification of the rights. Based on the classification, I am also classifying it into further sub chapters within fundamental rights. So, in the initial chapter, I will be talking about the introduction, then the significance, and its amendability, and various aspects before we start each and every right within the fundamental rights. So, in this particular video, my focus will be on the introduction to fundamental rights and significance of fundamental rights. So, it will be small videos, but different ideas. I would like to make it very clear and differentiated from the other idea. So, various small videos will be there within the fundamental rights chapter. So, the first video I would like to take is general introduction and significance of fundamental rights. So, this is the content of this particular video. Now, when we talk about fundamental rights, why are we calling it as fundamental? Why these rights are called fundamental? The first thing I would like to answer is that these rights are regarded as fundamental. So, we are talking about rights of the citizens. Okay, these rights are regarded as fundamental because they are most essential, for an individual. They are most essential for an individual, or for an individual to attain his full intellectual, moral and spiritual status. To attain his or her most essential for an individual. They are most essential for an individual, or for an individual to attain his full intellectual, moral and spiritual status. To attain his or her full intellectual, moral and spiritual stature. So, these rights are regarded as fundamental because they are most essential for an individual to attain his or her full intellectual, moral and spiritual status. So, without these rights, an individual will not be able to attain his full intellectual, moral or spiritual stature. That is why we are calling it as fundamental. And in fact, these fundamental rights, the presence of fundamental rights is the most striking difference between the present Constitution and the Government of India Act 1935. This is the most striking difference between the present constitution and the Government of India Act 19. So because in Government of India Act 1935 there were no fundamental rights. Otherwise a constitution was there for the making of the federation. Everything was there in 1935 Government of India Act. That is why even today we say that almost 60% of our constitution is taken from the Government of India Act 1935. But in Government of India Act 1935, there were no fundamental rights. And these fundamental rights are also known as the Magna Carta of India. Magna Carta. In fact, Magna Carta is the first written commitment by a king to his subjects regarding certain rights. Okay. So in fact, Magna Carta is in the context of Britain, the English people. In 1214, the then King of Britain, at that time King John, gave some written commitment of some ancient liberties or the then liberties. So this king gave a written commitment of the then ancient liberties. See, today we should not be worried about what were those liberties, because what was there 800 years before and what is there today, there will be totally different. So whatever it is, this was the first main instance where a king has given some written commitment to his own people that what all rights they can enjoy, what all liberties they can enjoy. This assurance was made in a written document which is known as the Magna Carta. The written document given by King John to his people is the first ever written document or written commitment by a king towards the liberties of the people at that time. That is why that was known as Magna Carta. And this is also for Indian people, this is a written commitment by our constitution regarding the rights of the people. So that is why we are calling it as Magna Carta of India. And similarly, in the modern constitutions, American Constitution, the USA, Constitution of USA has Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights, and that is a written commitment by the American Constitution regarding the rights of the people of US. Similarly, in Indian context, during our freedom struggle, the Nehru Report of 1928, it has demanded fundamental rights for the people. In fact, it demanded 19 fundamental rights. And in fact, today we have 19 fundamental rights, and the same fundamental rights which are demanded in the Nehru Report is now it has been incorporated as part 3 of the Constitution. So the fundamental rights is the part 3 of the Constitution, and these Nehru Report fundamental rights which are demanded are in total, it has been taken in toto, and it is part of our present Constitution right now. And these fundamental rights are also known as the cornerstone of the Indian Constitution. Fundamental rights are also the cornerstone of the Indian Constitution. And it is mentioned by Supreme Court, and also together with part 4, that is directive principles, is they constitute the very conscience of the Indian Constitution. According to B.R. Ambedkar, part 3 and part 4 together form the very conscience of the Indian Constitution. Conscience of the Indian Constitution. So that is what Ambedkar said. And even there is another very interesting statement. It was given by this Granville Austin. The famous American constitution expert on India, who died in 2014. So he studied the Constitution elaborately, and his books are considered to be books, especially on the working of the Constituent Assembly, is considered to be one of the best works done on the making of the Indian Constitution. So, Granville Austin, he said, in fact, Granville Austin suggested that the part 3 is the cornerstone of the Indian constitution. In fact, the first time it was mentioned, it was by Granville Austin. He said that it is the cornerstone of the Indian constitution. This is what even the Supreme Court has accepted and said subsequently in various judgments, that part 3 is the cornerstone of the Indian constitution. First time cornerstone was, it was mentioned by Granville Austin. He talked about cornerstone, that is part 3. So, these these are very essential, or rather these fundamental rights are, or these are the rights given to the people of India through the constitution, and this part 3 and article 12 to 35. Fundamental rights are enumerated between article 12 to article 35 of the Indian constitution, part 3 of the Indian constitution, and these are the written commitment given by the constitution to the people of India regarding their rights. Without these rights, we consider, or rather we are saying, these rights are essential for an individual to attain his full intellectual, moral or spiritual stature. That is in general the introduction. Now, let me just talk about the significance. Significance of fundamental rights. First of all, fundamental rights are individual rights. Fundamental rights are individual rights. They are essential for an individual to attain his full intellectual, moral or spiritual stature. So, available for individuals. It is not a collective right, it is not a society's rights. It is you and me. As an individual, we have certain rights. Say for example, right to equality, right to freedom of speech and expression, right to religion, right against exploitation. These are all rights given to individuals like you and me. It is available for all of us, not a collective right, it is an individual right. That is number one. Number two, without fundamental rights, democracy is meaningless. Meaning, if fundamental rights are not there, if rights of the people are not there, then democracy cannot function in a normal way. If you claim, or rather if a country claims that it is a democratic country, then fundamental rights or rights to the people are a must. Without these rights, democracy cannot be there, or there is no democracy whatsoever. Then if fundamental rights are not there, democracy is not only meaningless, it is as good as not there at all. That is the meaning of it. Without fundamental rights, democracy is meaningless. And number three, a society cannot be free. A society cannot be free if fundamental rights are not there. It may not be a free society. There will be a lot of restriction. There may be a lot of surveillance on them. So, a society can feel free if they can free that they can feel that they are living on its own, or they are not being monitored or watched or snooped by somebody. That feeling can come only if fundamental rights are there in its full form. If there are restrictions in fundamental rights, if the rights are restricted or curtailed, then they will not feel free. They cannot feel free at all. And another very interesting point I would like to add here is, these fundamental rights should be, these are included in the Constitution. Fundamental rights are included in the Constitution because these rights should be regarded as inviolable, because these rights should be regarded as inviolable in all circumstances. In all circumstances. Meaning, irrespective of the situation of the country, fundamental rights should be should not be violated. There should not be any question of violation of the fundamental rights. Who will violate? The state will violate. The government and the state should not violate the fundamental rights of the people. See, the only exception may be during national emergency. We will be talking about that. Fundamental rights can be suspended during national emergency. Other than, so that's an emergency, it's a war-like situation going on. If a war is going on, maybe we can talk about individual rights are not very important. We have to save the country first. That is okay. But other than national emergency, in all other circumstances, fundamental rights should be regarded as inviolable. It cannot be violated. Even, see, a very important component we should understand here is, fundamental rights should not be violated, or rather there should not be any change in fundamental rights only because there is a change in government. Shifting majority in parliament, in Lok Sabha, should not result in change in fundamental rights, should not result in violation of fundamental rights. Meaning, suppose suddenly a new government comes to power with a lot of majority, they should not be tempted, or rather there may be a lot of temptation for changing the existing fundamental rights also. See, for example, India is a secular country. If a religious party comes to power and if they feel like changing that secularism into something else, or the religious rights given under Article 25, if they want to change, that shift in majority should not result in changing of the rights of the people. So these fundamental rights are are incorporated in the constitution, are included in the constitution, because you cannot change the constitution that easily. Change in constitution means you need a special majority in the parliament to rewrite the constitution. Article 368 can be used, but it's a very difficult, it's not that easy to change constitution. So fundamental rights are included in the constitution because these rights should be regarded as inviolable in all circumstances. A shift in majority or a shifting majority in the Lok Sabha should not result in violation or alteration or change in the fundamental rights just like that. Yes, fundamental rights, if at all it should be changed, the procedure should be followed properly, and it should be through discussion and debate, and people's understanding, people's will should be reflected in that change. So again, coming back to the significance, so significance number one is fundamental is our individual rights. Without fundamental rights, democracy is meaningless. A society cannot feel free, or it would not be free if fundamental rights are not there. And fundamental rights are included in the constitution to ensure that these fundamental rights are not violated that easily, these fundamental rights are not changed, and most importantly, any new government coming to power with a lot of enthusiasm should not be tinkering, should not be violating our fundamental rights by changing it. Constitutional amendment and changes in the constitution is not that easy. That is why rights, fundamental rights are written down in the constitution itself. So, as an introduction I already said, fundamental rights are similar to Magna Carta. First it was mentioned in the Nehru report. A similar Bill of Rights were there in the US Constitution. Explicit rights even in the French Constitution are there. And India, our fundamental rights are one of the most elaborate of all the fundamental rights in any democratic constitution today. It's the most elaborate, or one of the most elaborate, and it was first mentioned in the Nehru report. And these are regarded as fundamental because this is very much essential for an individual to attain his full intellectual, moral and spiritual stature. So that's about the introduction and the significance of fundamental rights.